Okay, I don't think they can hear me, but I need to tell you this. 28 years ago, I saw the world collapse right before my eyes. I was but a child when the destruction ran rampant through the cities of the entire world. While it seemed, at the time, like this was some sort of natural disaster that anyone could actually get through, we quickly discovered it. Well, it had a name. The androids. I was, at the time, on a school trip with my class, hiking on another island. Frankly, I was originally in disbelief over the entire situation when we heard the news on the radio. The teachers were, as always, trying to calm us down, but one night, I overheard them talking. They couldn't keep it from us for long. They remembered the Saiyan invasion. That alien attack, which would seem absolutely implausible only a few years ago, well, they lived through it. They were also looking for a way to tell us that, well, truth be told, our families were gone. And I remember running out into the woods crying. I got lost. They had to search for me. I had more luck than reason at the time, as they found me the very next day. Hungry and cold. Kind of like how I am right now. I guess I was preparing myself. Yeah, the teachers, they took good care of us, but they knew we couldn't stay on the island forever. First thing in the morning, we were listening desperately to all the emergency broadcasts. Those pips, I just can't get them out of my head. We were going to sleep listening to them as well, just desperate to find out more. We knew that the radio wouldn't be working forever. We didn't bring enough batteries for that, but we needed more things. Supplies, food, clothes, batteries. While people at the mountainside shelters were really helpful, they couldn't aid us forever, and they knew it. I mean, understandable. They had people to protect themselves. People were scared. Nobody knew where these machines could attack next. Based on what we heard on the TV, they just attacked at random. TV broadcasts were limited, of course. We saw one at a shelter we once visited. The only TV in miles. But what we saw, such destruction. The city had been destroyed. For fun. Who does that? We spent a few months living like this. But when Hakana got sick, they realized that we had to risk it and search for a more civilized area. Some of them were still operating. It wasn't an easy task, mind you, to transport 17 kids, scared witless, with 4 adults in tow, over to the mainland, with those androids around, but we did it. And sadly, it took too long. Akana didn't make it. We gave her a burial, but I'll never forget the day she died. Just as if a light went off. And suddenly my friend was no longer a person, but a marionette without any strings. I'd never seen a corpse before. Sadly, it wasn't to be the last. Miss Ray assured us that they would keep us together, but honestly, after all that happened, we had our doubts. How could we trust anything they said? They'd made promises before, and they knew they couldn't keep them. As we built some rafts, it took us a few days of drifting on the sea to get to the mainland. I still can't believe we did it. The coast was abandoned, though, so what was even the point? We get to the mainland and nothing. Everyone just took what they could and left us to rot. So we went for help, and there wasn't any help. On the second day, Brady had fallen into the sea. He couldn't swim. I don't know what came to me that day, but of course, I'd seen one friend die. I tried to save another. I jumped after him, and as luck would have it, I managed to get him back on the raft. They were both angry and proud at me. I could see it in their eyes. They really wanted to be mad, but I don't blame them for being mad. They could have lost both that day. But Freddie would never be the same after that. He just started to lose it. Someone had to be awake to make sure he didn't do anything stupid. Just to prevent the poor kid from Well, you know. Mr. Taika. He felt the most responsible out of all of us. He tried to look the bravest, but we knew that sleepless nights were getting to him as well, and he became prone to the outbursts himself. As we got to the shore, we realised where all the boats went. Sorry. Oh, I thought it was them for a second. The boats, they were left ashore, abandoned. People were running away. What do you expect? We used the opportunity to salvage some of them and raid some of the nearby abandoned houses for supplies. Felt like some kind of video game. I thought I was ready for it, but when you actually have to do it yourself, it's a different story. That's people's stuff, man. Any moral doubts, though, they had to be put on the shelf. And some of the food wasn't in the best condition, but, well, we thought we'd rather be sick than hungry. We even used one of the houses as some kind of temporary shelter when we lived there for a couple of weeks. Lo and behold, who knew that having a roof felt like a luxury in those times? In the evenings, we were wondering what sort of family was living there, or had lived there, or does grammar even matter now? Either way, I knew that the tensions between the adults were growing. They'd been bad with us kids, but they were having even worse. Miss Ray wanted to stay there, while Mr. Taika was arguing that there had to be some other larger settlement. We couldn't stay there forever. He reminded her of Hakana and how we needed medicines for all the different kids. They had ailments as well. I was lucky that I wasn't afflicted by that sort of thing. The other two, Mr. Paz and Mr. Mai, they were trying to meditate and mediate, and between them, soon it became clear that they wouldn't be able to set it up peacefully. The group would have to break into two parts. There was no point keeping us all together. Iray begged Taika not to take any children with him, but 6 of us, along with Mr. Mai, decided to follow him. I remember Beak calling me a coward back then, like he was one to talk. Maybe I was, but something was telling me that all of this was a bad idea. Still, I can't forgive myself that our last conversation was a heated argument. What kind of way is that to end your best friend's time with you? In a blazing row. All we were doing was just copying what the adults were doing. What does that say about society? As they left our little shelter, it was the last time we were together. Why though? Sorry. Miss Ray did everything in her power to keep us there for months, and we were actually managing. But very quickly, it became apparent that we had to use up every single supply we had left. We actually lost track of time, actually. No more feeling like children and adults anymore. We kind of had to be one and the same. And that way was just the way it had to be. We couldn't have adults and kids. We all had to survive as one. But we knew that we had to move eventually. Wintertime was coming. It was very taxing for everyone. And do you want to know something? We almost lost Freddy again. God, they're fragile. So we decided to leave early in the spring. I want to tell you, this is the thing I really want to tell you, the ideal part, is that we found out about the fates of our other friends led by Mr. Taika, but, sorry, sadly that never happened. We never got clarity on whether they managed to survive or not. That's the disadvantage of the information age. Once you don't have it anymore, you miss it. Most of those who remained were not as athletic as his troop. So the journey took a long time. We saw that things were horrifying. Corpses left out on the streets. I told you that we were our last one. Damaged vehicles. Mr. Paz tried to enforce some of the sense of direction on Ray, but she was also mentally exhausted and close to breaking point. There were plans to go to West City, one of the most technologically advanced in the world, but for the first time during our pilgrimage, we actually got lucky. Hey, how about that? Thank you, Fate. We found a caravan of different people. They were evacuating as well. Apparently the only building that was still standing was some old company producing capsules. At the time, we didn't know about its significance. But still, they had enough to give us food and some new clothes and said that people were rallying down in Central City. That was to be our promised land. And this part of the journey I remember as, I want to say good, better experiences of the time. We had a purpose, a large group. Maybe we could actually survive all of this. Sadly, I told you, wouldn't last. A tragedy soon struck our group, as one night, Freddy disappeared into the night. We wanted to stay and seek him out, but the caravan refused to stop. That's the disadvantage of not having the control. We had to make a hard choice that day. A choice that haunted ᴬᴬᴜᴷ the most. But still, 9 of us, had finally come to Central City. Or what was left of it. And this has been our home now for... Sorry, don't have a watch. Who knows how long? We had to grow up quickly. Get trained in weaponry usage and expand our scavenging skills. Still, we kind of knew that it would hardly help against the androids because, well, look, they can blow up cities in a second. What's the point of having supplies? We spent years hearing about how other human settlements dealt with them. I've become a scout for the city, so I actually have a job. Really good at not being spotted, you see. That's why I'm down here. I mean, pretty good, eh? Comfy. Sadly, though, we sometimes had to take stuff from other people that we didn't want to be part of our community. It's a bit of a shame, but at the time, it was the only viable option. At least that's what I tell myself. But today, I feel we're no better than those blasted androids, taking from other people. I won't bore you with the details, but as the opening of this old wound today, it won't actually help us. But there was one day that caused me to completely rethink everything. We travelled around to gather stuff, as we do, scavenging an abandoned amusement park or something for some mechanical parts, de rigueur. You'll be surprised how many useful things you can actually find. Disposable stuff that the average person doesn't really think about. We were salvaging quite a lot of contraptions. It was actually a good day. And after all this time, we caught a glimpse of them. We knew that there were 2 of them. A man and a woman. Well, no, I mean, that's a misnomer. Mainly like a girl and a boy. I remember what Mears whispered to me that day. And it holds true to me. My God. They look just like us. And he was right. If you had seen them in a crowd, they would have looked like just your average teenagers. And the way they behaved, they kind of acted like them too, but only mad with power. There was some sick, cruel, inhumane satisfaction that they just showed. Forcing a kidnapped man to operate a roller coaster just for them. That could have been us back in the day. And Mears could swear that he could see bodies in the wagons. Oh, God. No, I don't want to think about that. That would have just made it even more twisted. But our devil had a human face. That made it worse. If it was just some alien or monster, it would have been actually fine to just think differently. But would it be better if we had powers like this? Would we have been better? Were they robots or something? Or were they human? Or androids? Well, they call them androids, but I had enough cruelty. And I had doubts about them, but it wasn't time to focus on that. It was just to make sure that we didn't get caught. In fact, it would haunt me for many nights or weeks later. But, well, we had to live in the moment. We escaped, though, by the way, leaving that poor man behind. Over the years, I've become more jaded and bitter. Many of my friends never returned from their scavenging missions. There were only 4 of us remaining in the end, minus ᴬᴜᴜ and Paz. So, the old teacher didn't make it. So much for the wise, eh? They were living together in the city, last we heard, and we wanted to keep them away from all of the pain and danger. We owed them their lives. But we owed them our lives. They had aged considerably, more than they probably should have. Perhaps due to stress, the amount of responsibility that they were given, they did all they could. We weren't their children. They didn't have to take care of us, but they did. And yet, they were the only family that we had. We all looked out for each other in the end. As for the androids, well, the androids were treating our world like their personal playground. We felt like it would never end, but you know what? It did. It did eventually. First, we couldn't believe the reports, but it was actually happening. There was a golden warrior or something like that, effortlessly destroying both of them. Where had he been the whole time? Why did it have to happen now? Sorry. Okay, no, we're good. We heard some rumors about all of those golden warriors back in the day trying to stop them, but it was never that simple. And yet, we learned that not only was this true, but also that the golden warrior was actually from Capsule Corporation. Trunks. Can you imagine that? The son of the billionaire, our hero. As you can imagine, people around the world rejoiced. The leader of Capsule Corp, Dr. Bulmer, did a lot to help us rebuild. It was a long process, but yeah, we actually had years of peace. And if any problems appeared, they did happen a couple of times. The Golden Warrior, Trunks, was there to save us. Yeah, it's good. There were actually rumors, rumors of him training under a god or something like that, but where's a god that allowed us to get to where we were? Truth and fiction were just started to mix too often, honestly. Anyway. Okay. This is getting to the hard part. After 9 years of hard work, they were mostly happy. And the sad thing was that ᴬᴜ passed away. Maybe she felt that her job was done. So she actually could rest. And we are adults now. We are now what they had to deal with. We're building a new future. It was a different, hopeful time. We couldn't rebuild it the way it was, but what we had, it was good enough. I mean, I'd take it. I even considered, at some point, settling down. Never thought I'd actually do that. Down in the mud. But that ship, as you can probably tell from my surroundings, that sailed. I was really focused on rebuilding, I was really, really enjoying it. I helped wherever I could. I love to see a city looking like a city again. Not like some makeshift military fort where you have to hide in corners on the risk of dying. I enjoyed listening to regular radio again, watching things on TV that weren't emergency broadcasts. I've seen children allowed to be children again. Actually play. Something we rarely got to do. And a child's education should include both play and learning. Not learning how to scavenge or hide in crawl spaces. Things like maths, history, physics, biology. Just learning from the past. I felt like no one should have their childhood stolen like ours was. And it actually made me happy, knowing that they wouldn't have to suffer through what we did. Yeah. Despite having no plans for the future, no personal hopes, I guess I was just happy to belong and be able to live out my days in relative comfort, I suppose. To see something grow instead of die. That's why I hate this situation so much. I want to see them dead. The androids were absolutely despicable, but when you actually look at it, they were honest in their cruelty, their destruction. At least they told you. This thing, this man in black. I really do regret that I never died in the initial explosion, as I was holding Mia's dead in my arms, looking at everything decimated. Then he took a few seconds. At least for the androids, they played with their food. And then, you know what? This is the kicker. He talked. He dared to speak about justice. Like he had some sort of twisted, haunted need to purge our world or something. I saw it rebuilt, damn it. Why did it need to be rebuilt again? I saw people starting over. He took it away. He took our hope! He took everything! He views himself as some kind of god. But if the experience of the androids has taught me anything, it's that even the greatest evil can be stopped. We know who we are, brothers and sisters. We are Earth's defense force. And we will stop his reign of terror. Somehow.